I did a show talking about LeBron James being disingenuous, and one of the things I discussed on that was him saying how he is considering whether or not he would actually want to do a walk away quietly like Tim Duncan at the end of his career, or if he wants to do the farewell tour like Kobe and Kareem and those guys. And my whole thing was,
Tim Duncan just dropped a response that shook the entire NBA conversation. The league's most low-key icon, the guy who avoided the spotlight, skipped the noise, and let banners do the talking for 2 straight decades, finally broke his silence. And when he did, it hit harder than any poster dunk ever could. This wasn't petty trash talk. This wasn't a numbers argument. This was a clash over legacy, pure and simple. A line drawn between earned greatness and talked about greatness. Between showing up and backing it up versus selling the story. Because when the most reserved champion the NBA has ever seen decides to speak, the world pauses, the scroll stops, the room gets quiet, and what comes next? Yeah, it's about to get real uncomfortable. So let's roll it back to where this whole thing actually began.
Great coaching, persistence, drive, love for the game. We remember what happened last year and how it felt in that locker room, and we used it and built on it. And got back here, and it's amazing. It makes last year okay.
17 years you have toiled side by side with Greg Popovich. What makes that relationship so special?
His fire. He brings it every year.
Early January 2025. LeBron James is doing what he's mastered for decades, owning the moment. He's settled into a laid-back media interview, relaxed posture, easy smile, fully aware that the spotlight is his to command. The conversation stays comfortable at first. Longevity, dominance, still performing at an elite level at 40. All familiar territory. Then the inevitable question lands. The one nobody was surprised to hear. Where does LeBron James stand in the all-time rankings? And that's when everything shifts. LeBron leans in. The smile fades. His eyes sharpen. That expression says it all. This isn't something he just thought of. This is something he's been waiting to say.
The one I can draw the parallel to is this. Is anybody going to sit here and tell me in their right mind that Barry Sanders is not one of the greatest athletes to ever walk the face of this earth, regardless of just being a football player?
Right.
They came close to maybe, advancing through the plaplayoffs.
Not that close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But my point,
no, you're right.
But my point being, you wouldn't have a discussion about great players in the NFL without including Barry Sanders. But this is a different discussion. This is a very, when you're talking about winning.
I respect the players who came before me, but let's not pretend, he says, and the mood instantly shifts. Championships don't carry the same weight they used to. According to LeBron, today's league is tougher, faster, deeper. He keeps going. Some legends spent their entire careers surrounded by the same elite teammates, locked into one system, guided by one coach. That wasn't his path. New cities, new schemes, new eras. Then he lays out the resume. Records, titles, MVPs, 10 trips to the finals, franchise turnarounds, and somehow still doing it at 40. So when the GOAT debate comes up, he throws the question back. What box hasn't he checked? The interviewer tries to cut in. It doesn't happen. LeBron closes it out bluntly. A few icons had smoother roads than they like to admit. Rosters built perfectly around them. He built his legacy through chaos. That's not opinion. That's reality. And just like that, the clip explodes across the internet within hours.
David.
Okay.
Bench Manu, and I'll cut the French boy. Can I do it again?
Wait, I got start, bench, cut. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James.
No, I refuse to answer that one.
You can't plead the fifth.
I will start all 3 of them and cut and bench myself.
That is the correct answer. That's the correct answer. Okay, how about this?
The internet catches fire instantly. Twitter erupts. Our Instagram fills with reaction clips. TikTok dissects the moment frame by frame, syllable by syllable. Every sentence gets looped. Every pause turns into speculation. A raised eyebrow becomes a full-blown argument. And here's the part that really matters. LeBron never drops a name. He doesn't need to. Everyone knows exactly who he's talking about. The comment sections go radioactive. He's talking about Duncan. Those Spurs titles were easier. 5 rings with one franchise don't hit the same. Finally, someone said said the quiet part out loud, then the backlash slams just as hard. 5 championships are 5 championships. End of discussion. Imagine having to explain why you're the GOAT. Tim Duncan never talked like this. Sports shows feast on it. Debate desks turn into chaos. Every analyst chooses a side. Every segment becomes a shouting match. But what no one noticed was what was happening off camera. While LeBron owned the headlines somewhere in San Antonio, the most reserved champion the league has ever known was listening. And for the first time in 2 decades, Tim Duncan was irritated. That's why this moment matters. 19 seasons, 5 championships, 3 finals MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs, 15 All-NBA selections. A resume so heavy it never needed a microphone. Through every GOAT argument, every viral clip, every endless debate, Duncan said nothing. No media tours, no brand building, no narrative management. He didn't promote himself, he just collected wins and went home. While other legends chased commercials and cameras, Duncan was restoring old cars and staying invisible. No flash, no flexing, just banners hanging in the rafters. And that's what makes what comes next hit differently, because Tim Duncan wasn't sitting on a studio couch, he was coaching kids. In retirement, he vanished. No farewell tour, no documentary rollout, no dramatic final season, no last dance. He played his final game, walked away, and disappeared. That was Duncan, the anti-celebrity, the anti-brand, a superstar so uninterested in attention that his silence became part of the legend. While everyone else chased the spotlight, he dodged it. Teammates used to joke that he'd win finals MVP and act like he'd just wrapped up a routine Tuesday workout. No chest pounding, no speeches, just fundamentals and quiet dominance. But here's what people forget about guys like Duncan. They notice everything, they hear everything, they don't forget anything, and when they finally speak, it carries weight. Not for clicks, not for attention, not to control a storyline. It's because something crossed the line. By mid-January, LeBron's comments did exactly that. Whispers started circulating through basketball circles. Duncan was seen at a private charity event. Nothing flashy, just former players, fans, and a good cause. But word travels fast. Someone overheard something, someone else passed it along. Suddenly, the rumors were everywhere. Supposedly, Duncan said the new generation was rewriting history, that today's stars weren't respecting what came before them, and people close to the situation said he wasn't calm, he was angry. Pause right there. Tim Duncan doesn't get angry, at least not publicly, so if he was genuinely bothered, that's not small, that's huge, that's seismic. Then the breadcrumbs started to appear. Manu Ginobili, Duncan's longtime teammate, posts an Instagram story. It starts with nothing more than a picture. Championship rings laid out neatly on a table. No caption, no explanation, no emojis, and yet everyone understood exactly what it meant. Then Tony Parker shows up on a podcast. He gets asked about the GOAT conversation. He smiles and says, "Some guys played the game the right way. Team first, ego last." That's real winning. No names, no accusations, but the message was impossible to miss. No shots fired directly, but the timing made it unmistakable. The Spurs family was clearly closing ranks, and Tim Duncan, he said nothing, which somehow made the statement even louder. That's when people started whispering a question no one ever thought they'd seriously ask. Is the big fundamental finally about to speak? By late January, the basketball world felt frozen in anticipation. LeBron's comments had been circulating for weeks. The debate had spilled everywhere. TV panels, podcasts, timelines, but it felt incomplete, like the story was missing its final chapter. Then the noise got louder. NBA insiders began hinting, hearing Tim Duncan may be open to a rare interview. Nothing official, no confirmation, just murmurs from people close to him saying, maybe. That alone was shocking. This is the same Tim Duncan who turns everything down. No interviews, no media runs, no spotlight, ever. But this time, he was considering it. Speculation explodes. Is he actually going to respond? Will he address LeBron head on? And after all these years of silence, what could Duncan even say that would move the needle? Here's the thing about legends who stay quiet for decades. Their words gain value. Every sentence becomes an event. Every phrase turns into a headline. Duncan understood that better than anyone. If he spoke, it wouldn't be impulsive. It wouldn't be emotional. It would be measured, intentional, and devastating in the calmest way possible. Behind the scenes, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Agents, media executives, former coaches, all saying the same thing. You don't need to respond. And that's how you know something serious was brewing. Some told him to rise above of it. Ignore the noise. Don't step into the circus. Others pushed back. Someone has to correct the story. And if it's not you, who is it? Duncan was torn. Part of him truly didn't care. He never needed validation, never chased applause, never asked for approval. That tension, that internal pull is where this story becomes real. Why speak now? Why at all? But the competitor in him had reached his limit. He was done watching history get reshaped, done seeing confidence excused as context, done with the idea that what he and his teammates built was somehow easier, less earned, less meaningful. That implication sat wrong with him, completely wrong. So he decided, one conversation, one moment, one chance to say his piece. Then he'd disappear right back into the life he loved. What Duncan didn't realize was this: what he was about to say wouldn't fade quietly. It would ripple through basketball history. January 28th, 2025. Tim Duncan sits down for an interview. Not ESPN, not a debate desk, no shouting panels. A small, low-key basketball podcast. Exactly the kind of place Duncan would choose. And the host is visibly nervous. This is the biggest guest he's ever had, and everyone listening can feel it. They start light. Life after basketball, his foundation, coaching his kids' teams. Duncan is relaxed, smiling, classic Tim, humble, grounded, completely at ease without attention. Then about 15 minutes in, the host takes a breath and steps into it. Tim, I have to ask, he says, there's been a lot of conversation lately about legacy and greatness. LeBron made some comments a few weeks ago that went viral. Have you seen them? And do you have any thoughts? The air changes instantly. You can feel it, even through audio alone. Duncan pauses, not because he's unsure, but because he's choosing every word carefully. When Duncan finally answers, his voice is calm, measured, and unshakably confident. I saw the comments, he says. I've avoided these conversations my entire career because I never believed they were important. He explains that he played for championships. He played to be the best teammate possible. He played because he loved basketball. What people decided to say afterward was never something he worried about. The host nods, already sensing it. That wasn't the answer. That was the opening. Duncan continues, still composed, but now there's a noticeable shift in the room. There is something that needs to be said, he adds. I'm going to say it once, and then I'm done. He pauses. 5 championships aren't easy. They're not just numbers on a resume. Each one represents years of sacrifice. He talks about the grind, the months of work no one sees, trusting teammates. I said buying into something bigger than yourself, especially when people insist you need more help. He leans back slightly and continues. I was fortunate to play with incredible players. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, David Robinson before them. Then comes the part no one was ready for. But here's what people misunderstand. Duncan says, we made each other better because none of us needed to be the guy. We only needed to win. That line hangs in the air. The host chooses his words carefully. Are you suggesting modern players don't approach the game that way? Duncan doesn't hesitate, not for a moment. I'm saying there's a difference between being great and needing everyone to tell you that you're great, he says. Some players compete to win, others compete to be remembered, and those two things aren't always the same. Silence. As the host tries to steer the conversation elsewhere, but it's already too late. Duncan isn't finished. Championships aren't about where you played or how many teams you joined, he continues. They're about sacrifice. They're about elevating the people around you. They're about showing up every night, not just when the cameras are watching. He pauses again, lets it breathe, then adds quietly, almost offhandedly, sometimes you're not convincing anyone else. You're trying to convince yourself. That's it. The interview continues for another 10 minutes, but none of it matters. That clip is already spreading. Within an hour, it's everywhere. Within 2, it's outpacing LeBron's original comments. The basketball world explodes. The big fundamental just delivered his cleanest, sharpest blow ever, direct without being disrespectful. And the brilliance of it all, he never once says LeBron's name, not a single outburst, no raised voice, no back and forth, just measured truth delivered with precision, and that's exactly why it lands so hard. The impact is immediate and enormous. Social media turns into a battlefield overnight. Team LeBron versus Team Duncan, numbers versus banners, individual dominance versus collective greatness. The GOAT debate doesn't just escalate, it completely unravels. Analysts start treating Duncan's comments like postseason footage. Every word slowed down, every pause dissected, every implication examined. One commentator points out, Tim Duncan has avoided this discussion his entire career. For him to speak now tells you exactly how he feels about where this conversation has gone. Another analyst pushes back. Is Duncan being fair? On, LeBron had to switch teams, adapt across eras, shoulder entire franchises, and that's where the generational gap splits wide open. Younger fans don't quite get it. They grew up in the LeBron era. To them, Duncan feels distant, almost historical. Why does his opinion even matter? But older fans understand immediately. They remember Duncan dismantling elite teams year after year. No flash, no theatrics, just fundamentals, discipline, and relentless team basketball. They remember championships built on trust, not highlights, not viral moments. Former players start weighing in. Some back Duncan without hesitation. He's right, they say. The game has drifted too far toward individual validation. Others rush to defend LeBron. One retired All-Star fires back. Let's be real. Duncan played with elite talent his whole career. On, let's not pretend he did it alone. And here's where things get fascinating. LeBron hasn't said a word, not publicly. For someone who usually addresses everything head on, that silence is deafening. Does he ignore it and look unable to handle criticism? Or does he respond and risk sounding defensive? Either option feels like a trap, and everyone knows it. What makes this even wilder is that the story hasn't fully reached the mainstream yet. It's still living in basketball spaces, social media threads, podcasts, YouTube breakdowns. But once ESPN grabs it, once the morning shows weigh in, once casual fans catch wind of it, this thing is going to erupt, and it all leads to a much bigger question.